identify. Identify is all about how to identify a need or an opportunity for innovation. It requires a raft of skills and the mindset of curiosity, that ability to be open-minded, to see the world with new eyes, being good at visualizing the future, being able to see beyond what others can see, to be able to observe trends and patterns and the interconnections of what that might mean, to have diverse networks, rich connections, rich relationships. Diversity is the lifeblood of innovation. Without diversity, we don't have different stimulus coming into the brain. Therefore, we can't make new connections. To have big doses of optimism, to be able to look out onto the world and see opportunities and not problems. But it's not just having these skills in ourselves. It's as an innovation leader, how do we encourage and build cultures of innovation where people can explore these opportunities so they can be externally focused, looking out onto the world. As a leader, it's about providing strategic focus. You have limited time, limited resources. You've got to be able to focus people's energy, otherwise it disperses and goes into nothing. Luckily, from my background, I'm quite pleased that I had the early childhood that I did. My parents were itinerant ministers, and I was brought up traveling from country to country. This meant that I was moved in and out of schools, I was homeschooled, much to my parents, their friends that said, oh, you don't want to take your children out of school, they won't get the best education. I was homeschooled on the road a lot of the time by my mother, another very strong lady. And what was good about that was being homeschooled and going in and out of situations. I had to be adaptive. I had to be resilient. I had to be able to walk into a new school and make friends. I had to adapt to new circumstances. I was brought up understanding and seeing the world as an amazing place of opportunity, an amazing place of discovery. And this fueled that curiosity within me. When I was 19, I went to work in Bogota, in Colombia, with street children. I then moved from Bogota and worked in Smoky Mountain in Manila, in the Philippines, and then into Cebu City, setting up healthcare centers for children. What was 1 year gap year after my A-levels turned into 5. And I was in my mid-20s before I returned to England and started to study politics. I saw a lot of the injustices, obviously, of the world, and I thought, right, politics must be the answer. Let's go into politics and see if I can make a difference there. What I found, though, from my research was that curiosity is one of these mindsets that is very lacking in a lot of organizations. Most of the time, organizational energy is spent on internal matters, internal meetings, internal activities. There's very little outward looking, out onto the world. Maybe a few departments have that inside of them, the marketing department maybe, or the strategy department, or those that are looking outside to see what their customers or stakeholders might be requiring. But for the most part, organizations are very internally focused. I was quite naive, I believe, when I set up my own business, the Entheo Network, 7 years ago. I had been working as an innovation director for a large research firm. And I was working with big brands like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Diageo, American Express, mostly on concept development, new product development, new services. And what I was seeing was it wasn't the lack of ideas. It was the lack of the ability to execute on an idea rapidly and take it to market that was the problem. So this started me thinking about what I term organizational innovation. Not just getting a new product or a new service idea, but how do you systematically build the competences of a firm or an organization to innovate? How many of you know of innovation departments? Not just for brand or product or research and development, but organizational innovation. looking at the whole terrain of an organization and how it can innovate. Luckily, things are getting a little bit better 7 years on, but it's been a massive organizational journey in terms of going in and talking to companies about this. Because who do you talk to when you want to talk about innovation? Who do you go to? Yeah, Google innovation, and you'll get millions of hits. Read any paper, any magazine, there's always going to be articles about innovation. And a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers study said that 72% of CEOs say it's one of their top 3 priorities. So we've got this big disconnect between what is required and the reality of what's happening on the ground. One of the companies I work with here in Singapore is Singapore Airlines. And actually, they're one of the few companies that we've worked with where we've had the head of product development and research, the head of strategy, the head of HR, all sitting around a table saying, how do we systematically get ourselves to get better at innovation? But that's quite rare. And we're now working with them, with their management population, and it's exciting to see how the organization is moving forward. So how do we develop this curiosity in ourselves? One way of doing this, a simple way of doing this, is to systematically start to collect observations, facts, figures, ideas, things that are maybe sort of stimulating you to think a little bit differently. Meet new people, make new connections, create new relationships, because this will increase your diversity coefficient. This will increase your ability to expand and think differently. If I asked any of you, in terms of slowing down, how much time do you take to do that? We're all running around, we're all so busy, yet we need to slow down. How often do we have ideas when we're just walking in the woods? I love the beautiful botanic gardens here, just running there in the morning. Just letting that time to percolate, to slow down. If we don't have space in our mind, then the dance of curiosity can't take place. We have to create space for curiosity.